we're live. Hello, everyone. We're live. Thank you for joining us this evening. We actually have a few viewers already on Facebook. I'm
Ooh,
surprised. So,
very
thank you. Um, and so it's been a while. It's actually been 2 months since our last podcast, so it's been a while.
nearly, yeah.
Yes. So hi, my name is John Benares, and I am part of the Level Up crew, where we talk about geeky stuff and Christianity. So,
Mhm.
and together with me, I have of course, our usual cast of characters: our CEO, Boss Mang, John G. Hey, John.
Hello, hello. Good evening.
And who is currently off cam right now, our Chibi Otaku, Maya. Hey, Maya.
ハロー、こんばんは、皆さん。
Right. So, with that being said, let's jump right in. So, welcome again to Level Up Geek Nights, and we are going to be talking about a very special topic. What is it, John?
All right. So our topic is something that is very often overlooked. Why? Because we may not notice these things in the fandoms or in the characters whom we enjoy. So tonight's topic is we are gonna be talking about um, disabilities and both physical and mental in characters of the various fictions and geeky things which we like.
Yeah.
Stories, anime, comic, video games, whatnot.
Yeah. I think it's very important for us to highlight it because I think uh, we're all about representation. No, just kidding. Um, but
Well,
I think
not
but I think the plight of those who I think well, number one, normally people go into geek media to actually escape disabilities and traumas. So I think that's the general rule. So when it comes to actually it being portrayed in popular geek media like anime, movies, or even in games, it's not really often that you would see that because that's what most geeks are really trying to avoid in the first place, right? So
yeah.
I think it's important that there is representation so that um, we are actually more well-rounded citizens and we are more aware about the plight of those who actually do have some sort of disability or trauma in their lives.
Which, as we know, in today's I don't know what you call it, society, culture, in our generations, um, of course, we actually do know that trauma and various disabilities have always existed ever since biblical times,
Yeah,
but it is more understood today because of science, medicine, and so on, and it's more something aware of today, especially with emotional and mental health. That's something that is a lot more understood or at least aware, particularly by our current generation. So, to start, yeah, siguro yun yung ano natin. That's our starting thing. Like, how are we defining traumas and disabilities as we understand it with with the media we engage in, with the things we enjoy. So,
maybe let's ask Maya what her thoughts are.
yes, we can. Can we?
Hi guys. Medyo sabaw pa ako kasi I'm actually working right now.
Oh,
'Cause we have a presentation tomorrow. So, yeah, but just to jump in on the topic lang then, I would like to give a disclaimer na we're not experts on this
Yeah.
no, no.
topic. Yeah, but we do like to discuss among ourselves uh things that we see and things that we enjoy. And right now that topic would be disability in geek media, right? So when we were talking about this, syempre ang ating expertise, quote unquote, is anime.
Uh,
So yeah, but yeah, there have been um anime, parang peppered across yung mga anime that I have already seen. And I would really like pinpoint yung the anime that I've seen, yung
Yeah.
Josie the Tiger and Josie the Fish and the Tiger. If familiar kayo, actually Nina Kuni also has uh, a person who has this ability.
True.
Actually, if we're talking about mental, I would also include like Tokyo Ghoul, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Si
Yeah. Yeah.
Kaneki,
Yeah.
he was really like messed up when he encountered that unfortunate time in his life, di ba? And yeah, whether physical or mental, it has been portrayed in anime uh, media.
Yeah.
So and I believe na ano na it's kind of like uh parang o what they call it right now is inclusive din, no? Yung ini-include talaga nila yung mga ganong kind of
Characters.
yeah, characters in anime, so that they may like siguro relate then to their audience. And ayun, so yun yung ano, yung napapansin ko. But of course, meron din namang mga ganong kind of portrayal in fiction, not just anime, like fiction in film, in literature. So I guess I, I have watched a few films, pero alam mo yun, parang mas ano ah mas nakaka-relate talaga ako sa anime. So,
Yeah.
what about you guys? Ano yung mga um, fiction media na you've seen na very close to that topic?
I guess we could round out anime before we move along first. Sa anime, another thing that I would point out would be like um, how do you put it? Ah, wait, video games pala yun. Sorry. But I'm like, teka lang. Yung, I don't know if you consider it an anime, but Cyberpunk 2077, yung Edge Runners.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
animated. Yeah.
animated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and saka yung, and also Arcane. So the League of Legends Arcane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was kind of like putting that off for later. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll dive deeper into that later. But like
Okay.
there are a lot of shows which have them. Other animated shows. Funny thing enough, these are Western shows which are animated in the
Jap
adjacent
style.
to Japanese style. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Avatar definitely. See
Yeah.
Tom Ray Fong. She's
Oh
blind.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
How could I forget?
Right,
I
right.
think with ano, I think in a lot of anime, at least in the past, it hindi siya masyadong highlighted because for animation and even in games and in like fiction stories, it's usually about characters with superpowers. And because usually we look towards these characters as parang symbols of hope or maybe a symbol of who you want to be, right? So I guess if you were like disabled or you have some sort of disability or some sort of trauma, you wouldn't want your characters to have that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's as culture progressed, it became more important that these kinds of animes actually do address those issues or parang may touch of reality. There should be some sort of touch of reality in that.
Correct.
One anime that comes to mind is actually here Slam Dunk here.
Uh,
um we have one character, si Mitsui, who got into a fight, and because of that fight, um, nagka, nagkaroon siya ng injury, and that injury did not allow him to parang initially it did not allow him to play the game anymore, but eventually it became more of parang nag-translate siya into a mental state where parang nilabas niya lahat ng galit niya by becoming a gangster, sort of parang ganon. And because Slam Dunk is a slice of life anime, so we see the process of him healing and eventually getting back into the sport. No, we still see that he still has parang he still struggles with sometimes with yung not being able to play as well as he used to. Pero alam mo yun yung parang it's the question of being able to overcome that eh. And I think that's really a beautiful story. And na-mention ni Maya kanina yung Josie, the Tiger and the Fish. I think it's one of the few animes that really focused on disabilities. And I think it's nice, no? Kasi parang makita mo talaga yung how characters, even in real life, this happens eh. So parang ganon, yung how do you deal with trauma? How do you deal with disability? And sometimes, and a lot of times when you have a disability, there's usually trauma involved to it, right?
It's been a trend. Actually, if you look at the shows, not that they weren't visible before, but I believe like in current and recent media, it's become more, as you said, there's more of an emphasis on certain parts of reality.
Mas may relevance siya, bale. Parang ganun.
So you see some of that, or you see more of that, especially in recent media, recent shows. So yeah.
There's one storyline from an anime / game franchise, Dot Hack Sign. It's kind of old, lol. Sorry guys, I'm old. So, but in that storyline, we have a character who finds herself not being able to log out of the game. And then we later find out that this character has a tragic backstory. But one of the characters that was trying to help her get out of the game was another character who in game, like she's like considered like one of the top players in the world, and she's like what do you call this? She's like a very helpful girl, but in real life she's actually disabled. So it's an interesting contrast when you look at that anime. I was like looking at it. It's an interesting thing where she's using the game to deal with her own disability. And
it's a coping mechanism or something.
Yeah. So for my anime, those are some of the top ones that come to mind. I also remember Naruto, where Guy Sensei, after unleashing his power, he got disabled. He stuck to a wheelchair, right? Unless he uses his powers, he really cannot stand anymore normally because the bones in his legs are like broken or something.
Yep.
They're permanently broken and they're too brittle for him to stand on.
That's a good point. So yeah, there is a lot of visibility. Actually, what you mentioned with Dot Hack is also something that you do see in other settings or media where you have like a virtual reality concept. It is it's not uncommon to have a character who has a very bright personality or a powerful personality, and then they're actually disabled in a physical way in real life. So or their real life or their non-virtual, non-digital self.
I think in a sense there is some reality to that where a lot of geeks run away from their traumas. Maybe not disabilities, maybe some disabilities, but from traumas, so that they can feel good about themselves when in game.
You find they parang what happens is like people, or in this case geeks, they try to find a setting or a life that they want to have or they can live out, where they can be freed from certain restrictions, or at least they have like a certain set or system which they can understand and utilize or whatnot. So to express themselves or to live out and be more of themselves, create the kind of reputation or life that they wish they could have. So it is a, I don't know how do you say, very sympathetic story or thought um, to have.
But
Yeah.
is it really important for us to be exposed to that kind of media?
Mm.
I'm just throwing out the question.
I think it is, yeah. Because there have I know there are a lot of uh siguro kids na who grow up not having to know how to deal or cope with their own disabilities
Mhm.
unless their parents know how to
uh-uh.
or are supportive of their children.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
And I guess seeing it like, oh hey, that guy, actually gonna naman talaga for kids especially when they see a character that they can connect to, that they can empathize to. They see someone and like, hey, that's like a cool um thing. He's actually like what in the background.
Yeah, because I remember um
Yep.
ano to it was just a recent series that was Marvel yun eh.
Mm.
And then
Yeah, see, the girl, parang
yeah,
like a hitman or
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, and
Si
then
Echo.
yeah, she's deaf and mute ba?
I
Ano
believe.
ba?
She is deaf and mute. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've seen her interviews, and alam mo yun, when you see them being able to represent yung sector na yun, they are really proud of how they have been able to penetrate Hollywood, eh, 'di ba? And being able to portray someone with disability na may superpower, ibig sabihin, they parang na-empower din yung people who kind of relate to that character by seeing them with superpowers. Um, although we can admit na in reality we don't really have superpower, pero alam mo yun, parang there's this sense of yeah, empowerment din eh, um putting yourself out there, doing what you can. Not every part of you is disabled, 'di ba? You still have a lot of you that you can
Yeah.
be able to use, 'di ba?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
Actually,
and
maganda
there
nga
are
yung...
other
So,
heroes nga. There are
sorry.
other heroes like that also. Like see Batgirl, Oracle.
Yeah, actually. Ang ganda nga ng storyline because I really appreciated that storyline because I think it humanized the character.
Mm-hmm.
To show that because normally when you go to DC, especially in DC, DC tends to have characters that are invulnerable, they're like super
Very over the
powered,
top. Yeah.
but they don't the humanization of their characters is not very often seen. No, at least not as often in, let's say, in Marvel characters. So
Yeah.
when they introduce a storyline for Batgirl where she gets shot and she actually becomes permanently disabled, that was a shock. That you have a character here that could go through something like that kind of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was an inspiration in such a way that they didn't allow the character just to, oh, she's just disabled, that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
She got back up, she became something else so that she can still support her team. She became the Oracle,
Yep.
and eventually they found a way for her to heal her from her wound so that she could walk again. Meaning, it gives that kind of inspiration where, really, if you put your mind to it, you know, many things are possible, right? And it's kind of course, let's not abuse this passage, but you know, like in the Bible, all things are possible with Christ, right? I'm not trying to abuse that or misuse the passage, but I think the idea is that if we really put our mind to it, if we really believe in it, you know, it can happen. I'm not saying it will, but it can, right? And I think it's important for us, like, because there are many people who were not born with disabilities. They got it later in life, right?
They might have gone through an accident or may nangyari. I don't know.
So
Yeah. And yung mga nanggaling sa ganun na all their life, they know that they're complete, they don't have any disability, and suddenly they meet an unfortunate event in their lives. Parang it really devastates them eh.
mm,
Whereas someone who was born with a disability and parang knew how to uh, cope with it, how to um, really be able to uh, maximize their lives with that disability, parang makikita mo talaga yung difference, how someone who was born with disability and someone who just met an unfortunate event and then became disabled would cope with their disabilities.
Yeah, like Ranking of Kings now is one of the animes.
Yeah, I love that anime.
I,
Mm.
I've been meaning to watch that anime. Hindi ko pa rin siya nagagawa.
The strength of it isn't in its visuals; it's in the storyline.
Yeah.
Oh,
So actually, if I'm not mistaken, I suddenly remember what was that show that we recently watched? Happy Marriage.
ah, yes, My Happy Marriage. Medyo,
Actually, when you look at that had a lot of stories about trauma. So parang, you know what? I think it's important to be exposed to that kind of media, also because um the natural tendency of geeks, and let's admit it, the natural tendency of geeks. How do you deal with trauma, or how do we deal with things don't go according to plan? We what? We tend to run away from it. We tend to be escapists. A lot of geeks are that. I'm not saying everyone is like that, but a lot of geeks are like that. So, in a way, parang we are also forced to deal with the reality of life when it's also in the media that we actually use.
mm, that's true. So I guess it's like, although people can still choose to avoid watching those shows, but I guess the thought would be like it is a medium where you can showcase a particular struggle and you can craft a story to give hope or to show a healthy and mature way of dealing with it. At the same time, you can also show what is an immature and unhealthy way of dealing with it, which is a common thing. Oftentimes, we do see our characters in a very unhealthy ways display their emotional and mental problems. Um, most dark, most of the dark fantasy, dark etc. have this thing. So a lot of dystopian adjacent storylines feature a lot of this stuff. So societal traumas pa nga yun, di ba?
True. I think it also I think one of the things that is also good with showing like disability in popular media, especially in geek media, is that it brings things to light that normally would not be talked about. Right?
Mm. It
So
gives you like a neutral space.
it tends to become a neutral space, and I think that's really beneficial. Are you guys familiar with this K drama? Of course, I'm gonna bring out the K drama. I don't even watch K dramas that often, but I really like this one.
Sige, go.
Extraordinary Attorney Woo. Are you guys familiar with that?
I've heard of it.
Yes, I've heard of it.
And,
Bits and pieces.
Pero hindi ko siya napanood.
sorry, Maya, what was that?
Bits and pieces, yeah. Mga clips, ganun.
So I highly encourage people to watch that K drama, and it's I think because I really liked it because it didn't focus on the romance. Of course, there's romance in it because most K dramas have romance in it, but it wasn't the focus. The focus was on this character who had who is on the spectrum, autism spectrum, but she actually learns to have an independent life, learns to have a life for herself, right? And in fact, because in Asian cultures, usually there's a tendency for in Asian cultures, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, that they tend to have a negative look when it comes to disabilities, whether it's mental disability or physical disability. They usually have a and they don't not want talking about it. And in fact, in many Asian cultures, they don't even want to talk about like mental health, right? So it's something that. But in Korea, when this show came out, suddenly there was like a rise of awareness for um, autism and understanding of the capabilities of people who have autism,
Right, right.
and an understanding that that they have feelings too. They are able to actually understand others even if it's in a different way, and that
Mm-hmm.
they can also live for themselves. They can survive on their own, and so there was like a surge in a sense of understanding, and then like there was like they showed like there are more people with autism that are attending schools now, and because of that it's a positive impact of the show. And I think that's when I heard about that, like, wow, okay, that's cool, right? And it's not something that you get to see often, where media actually influences society.
It does though. Like, cause say for example, not this is not this disability connected, but when Slam Dunk came out, there was a significant uptick in basketball activity in Japan for a long time. So, so really good media can produce a large effect.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, the writer of Slam Dunk is a huge basketball fan, and the reason he wrote the manga was because he wanted to promote the sport more. And when it came out, especially in the anime back in the 90s, suddenly there was a surge of basketball players in
Hmm.
schools, in
Actually, oh, and to follow up on that, see the writer for Slam Dunk, si Inoue Takehiko,
mm,
actually has a currently active or recently finished manga about disabled basketball players.
yes,
So na naka-wheelchair.
yes, he has that.
Mm. So might no longer be as famous for that work, but the fact that it's there brings a lot of awareness and generates more sympathy and understanding for those conditions. Actually, a lot of Japanese anime um, tend to have that thing, diba? Like Cells at Work taught us a lot about, gave us a fun way of learning about
Yeah.
the human body, anatomy, etc. So we do know that media can generate a lot of interest in things. Mm-mm. And some of our top football players uh, for Americans, it's soccer, but they found their inspiration in Captain Tsubasa, right? Wouldn't be so surprised for me that in some years from now, you would have people who got inspired by Prince of Tennis to take up, tennis. So media can absolutely bring in awareness in a positive light, in a good light, towards those kinds of things.
Indeed.
Mhm.
I forgot the title of the basketball manga that's on wheelchairs. So I had to
Mm.
look it up. It's called Real. So if anyone's interested, if that manga is available, you can look it up. It's called Real,
Mm.
as in Real, and it's
Very
it's
real.
it's it's. I think that's the nice thing, really, is that there are things that would normally not be talked about that's now being talked about.
Mm.
I think aside from disabilities like trauma, for example, like depression, anxiety, we're now actually seeing that being portrayed. It's no longer as taboo as it used to be. Again,
Mm.
in since coming from an anime perspective, or a lot of Asian cultures tend to think of mental health, trauma as taboo topics, as things that we should not be talking about. But
Mm.
then now with the exposure on in media, it's starting to people are starting to see, hey, it's something that needs to be addressed, right?
Or it's something that we need to learn how to engage with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So like yeah, it was mentioned here like 3 out of 5 in the main cast of anime typically have some sort of trauma, which is true. If it may not be physical, but it may be emotional, mental, relational. Like chances are you have a character who suffered from parenting trauma, either bad parenting or a parent dies. They might have suffered from bullying or whatnot. So there's a lot of ways that you can become disabled in a sense, um, because of really warped social dysfunctions. Sometimes it's because of like some there might be a biological or physiological reason that supports it, but sometimes it's just really terrible experiences in life. And sometimes, especially for adults, these are just bad choices that they continue to make.
Sometimes it's PT.
So
Sometimes it's also PTSD.
PTSD, exactly. So PTSD is one. We do see, and we do see this a lot, especially in more ano ba, action oriented storylines with war and child soldiers. So you see Full Metal Alchemist, for instance, child soldiers with a he had like a metal arm, and then his brother was full body, wala, diba?
Speaking
Uh,
speaking of war, Grave of the
yeah.
Fireflies.
Yes, there's that. I never actually got to watch it. I do not intend to. It's too masakit.
It's
I,
it's masakit.
uh, Patty mentioned one of her favorite characters had PTSD, brainwashing, and trauma inflicted on him. Si, ano, best friend ni Captain America.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totoo,
Yun.
totoo.
So he was also coming from a lot of like PTSD and other traumas. And he previously, as Maya mentioned, like these are people who were previously they knew they were healthy. They knew they were okay. So they have something to look back to now. Oh, okay, ako. And then now I'm like this. So there's like a big gap in mental, emotional, and physical states.
I think I was thinking na ano na another anime that came to mind is Fruits Basket. My gosh.
Mm,
That's like it's almost like the characters there are trauma bonding because everybody has had so much trauma in that anime. Um,
sure.
from their family, and it's understandable the trauma that they have to deal with. Like for example, parents not being able to what do you call this? Hug their children. The children having to learn that having to be what do you call that? Treated differently. And how does one deal with that kind of situation, right? And I remember reading the manga, watching the anime, and all I could do was just, why am I always crying in this show?
Yeah,
But
because
yeah,
there's always some stuff happening. I mean, another show like that happening to children, terrible things happening to children. Um, what was that thing? Promised Neverland.
oh my
Oh,
gosh, oh my
that was,
gosh.
so. Terrible show. Great show, but also terrible. Uh, and then there's also shoot. There's that other show, Nuts. I forgot. Anyway,
Yes. What's the other show?
Attack on Titan is a good one. Yes, thanks. Si Patty mentioned Attack on Titan. So much
Yes.
stuff there. So there's a lot of shows. Made in Abyss, yeah. A lot of Iron Blooded Orphans. So child soldiers, super chock full of traumas and disabilities at some point. Although usually they just die. So I don't know.
Yeah, not much of those shows show parang recovery from what they've
I know.
actually
So it's difficult to find
experienced.
something. Like what is a show that there's a lot of that uses it to shock people into like this is the dirty, ugly face of war or whatnot. And yes, acknowledge. But here's something I'd like to kind of semi pivot. Um,
Mm.
or maybe I want to introduce one more thing before we pivot to what are examples of healing shows. The last one is like that I want to introduce as a thought piece lang is in cyberpunk, for example. Uh, these are people who choose to inflict stuff on themselves because like in their pursuit of you could say like power and money and the things like oh I need to do this to stay alive or to survive in this world. For edge runners in particular, the our a protagonist si what was his name again, si Ramirez ata,
Mhm.
he sorry, Martinez, David Martinez basically keeps adding more and more cyberware to himself, which is interesting because he had a fully functional
Body.
physical form, but because he thought like I needed more edge over everyone else, he added all this technology, which eventually kind of adds to his loss of humanity. He starts to lose a grip on reality with himself. So parang it's like self-inflicted disability, which is sad because he made those choices as a adult more or less, 'di ba? He was a 20 something. So adult naman. So it gives also food for thought na what do we think about it for people who consciously decide to take a path which I don't know disables their humanity. 'Di ba? That's a
I
thought.
think I think in a sense there's a lack of proper dealing with his issues or problems,
Mm.
which causes him to make those decisions. Remember that when we go through trauma or disability, when we have a disability, um, there's always a battle of the mind.
Mm.
I think with a disability, even even people with mental disabilities, they will always have that battle where they might feel that they're not good enough, they're never enough, you
Right,
know,
right.
and but the question is how do we respond to that kind of trauma? How do we respond to that kind of feeling when we have that kind of disability and we feel that we are not good enough because we have this disability? No, I'm
Right.
not good enough because I'm not able to walk. I'm not good enough because mentally I'm not the same way as wired as everybody else, right? And so I think it's always about the response as well, and like I mentioned earlier, we talked about how many geeks tend to like escape. They use escapism as a way to deal with it. That's their
Right.
coping mechanism. But then there are people who make wrong choices so that they can feel better about themselves. Like,
Mm.
they try to go through surgery, like for plastic surgery, because they feel that they're not beautiful
That,
enough. And in a sense, that's like the character of David Martinez, like, putting augments on himself and cybernetic hardware just to make him feel better, stronger, faster, whatever, because
more
he
capable.
feels that he needs to do that so that he can become more capable. So and again,
Right.
this ends up with bad choices, right? It's how he actually processed his trauma, and
Mm.
I think that's the how you say, the extreme, no, na parang wrong way to deal with it is by, you know, and in a sense, I think a lot of times it's also reminding ourselves, if we have some sort of disability or if we have gone through trauma, that
Right.
we are good enough. No, we don't need to struggle, right? And
It's
that
a
is,
strong sense of self. Yeah. With
and I guess
identity.
that it's okay to ask for help.
Mm.
There's the statement, it's okay not to be okay. I don't want to oversimplify that. Um,
Mm.
but sometimes it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to ask for help, right? As long as we actually deal and process what we're going through, so that we can make better choices.
That's true. That's true. So, I guess that's a good point to like. Okay, pivoting naman. Like, what are shows or what shows show us a healing orientation for any of these things?
Alex's silent voice.
I am curious what that is. That is not something I know.
Like I said, I'm still surprised you haven't watched it. Josie and the Tiger and the Fish is still on the top of my list.
Okay, okay. How does it show or depict a positive healing path for people struggling with disabilities or trauma?
Which one?
Yung
Josie,
Josie and
Tiger,
as you said, yung
and
top of
Fish.
list mo.
Well, the protagonist kasi there is a young girl who has a physical disability. She is paralyzed waist down, and she's been living with her granny, and she hasn't been going out of their home, like parang isolated talaga sila. And then the way that she coped with her or healed from her, like mentally then, kasi parang she doesn't believe that she can do anything. She's just stuck at home because of her disability. So um, the this guy chanced upon them, her and her Lola, and kind of like gave um, sir quote unquote services na uh, parang to help her cope with that, ano, uh with what she's going through, is to just be with them, like um companionship at home. And eventually the guy took her out to see the world, so to speak. And then that's where yung desire for her to come out of her shell and to actually see the world in a different perspective. And then she realized that she isn't really that um, incapable at all, because she then uh, goes to this library, and
Yeah.
knowing her, she's very she's an artistic person, and what she does at home while she's isolated is draw and imagine stuff in the ocean. And she really likes the ocean dwellers. And si guy kasi, he desires to be a marine biologist, I think. And so ayun, he shows her um the ocean life, quote unquote. And then ayun, how she gets out of her shell is that she becomes a librarian, and because of her artistic side, she becomes a storyteller. She becomes uh, ab- she writes her own book all, about uh, yeah, so basically ayun, she was able to heal from everything that she's gone through, being isolated and all, thinking about her disability, and then eventually she becomes the librarian, and hindi na siya hinahabol ng DSWD dahil yung the kasi the government is worried for her na she might not be able um to care for herself, pero because she got out of that stump, um she was able to actually be hired, so that's the healing process of for Josie. And it has more to the story. It's not just Josie, but also the guy who helped her. And I think it's important din na for the healing part, to have someone to guide you out of
Yeah.
that, ano
Mm.
guide you out of where you are, uh,
Mm.
or the darkness that you're in. And siguro just uh to really help, um let let you see a different angle from where you are. Kasi it's important na you're not just seeing what you've always been seeing your entire life, 'di ba? So when you have someone to guide you out of that, um, you can see a different perspective, and you're able to kind of, yeah, pivot out of of where you are. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was babbling.
No.
No, no, it's okay. So, kind of putting it together. Uh, yung healing process niya would be, it's actually very, ano ba yan? Well, my take on it is, it's very like centered around yung connections niya with the people around the character. I mean, at least yun yung one of the main um recovery
Mm, mm,
components.
mm, mm,
Oo. And yeah, kasi most of the time, a lot of the time, and then in a lot of the shows, um, yung sometimes the disability itself is not the only issue, 'di ba? But it's also because of how people treat the person
Yeah.
or interact with the
Yeah.
person, which causes them to feel a certain way or to feel certain in a basta it causes them to have certain feelings, or they have possibly yung depressed sila or whatnot. So, and that leads them to take bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
So yun.
I think I agree with Maya earlier that with Josie na nangailangan kasi ng ano, 'di ba? Parang there's a need for someone to help guide you. Na-mention kanina yung earlier silent voice, no? The trauma that was depicted in silent voice, without giving out spoilers. The way moving forward with that was being able to go through it with somebody. Hindi siya in a sense, it's not something that you deal by yourself or on your own. I think if you look at Edge Runners, going back to Edge Runners, in a lot of cases he dealt with his trauma on himself. He didn't really
By himself, yes.
he didn't really talk about it, what he was experiencing. It was all by himself. So I look at another one that I remember, Fruits Basket, for example. Um, it's a very traumatic show, but at the end, what helped them was someone who was willing to go with them every step of the way so that they can heal from their trauma. Someone who would who was full of hope and was willing to love them regardless of who they are. You know,
Mm.
I think in Fruits Basket a lot of times they did not talk about their traumas because it was taboo to talk about their traumas, about their curse.
Mm.
So they didn't really get to deal with it. Then along comes a girl who is always bright, who is full of hope, who is what do you call that? Even in the worst situations, she doesn't lose hope. And here she was that she was willing to love these guys regardless of who what their dark secret is, right? And so
Actually,
yeah.
actually, now that I think about it, yung Josie the fish and the tiger and the fish, whichever comes first. Ano eh, it's a the girl was disabled at birth, and then something happened then kasi to the guy. So the guy naman portrays someone who has been healthy all his life and then met an unfortunate event. So in both of their lives, they kind of like were they kind of helped each
Each
other
other.
out. The guy helped Josie, and Josie now having this different perspective in life, having gone out of the darkness, she was now the one who had hope and passed on that hope to the guy who met his ano that unfortunate event of his life um that kind of plunged him into the darkness because uh, ano siya eh, he's not disabled. He had a bright future ahead of him, and then all of a sudden experienced that. So ang ganda lang na um parang may contrast yung dalawa, someone who was born with disability and someone who just had a disability because of an accident, and both of them helped each other to come out of that ano of the darkness that they were in.
So
Mm,
yeah, ang ganda. And again, going back, it's group effort eh. No? I think it's having that support system is important.
ano,
We
love is
look
the
at
answer daw eh.
when we look at trauma, we look at that, we need a support system. Hindi siya, it's not a one man ano uh one man process. It's really it takes a community
Mm.
no to heal. I think because we are created as human beings are created to be in fellowship with one another. And we are supposed to carry each other's burdens. And I think that's why healing happens when it's in a community that's willing to show that kind of sacrificial love and to have that hope even when the person that you are with does not have it. You
Yeah.
carry that hope for both of you guys. Ganon, yung ganon na thinking. And I guess that's if we are to segue, yes. I think that's why it's important to have small group, right?
Mm.
What do you think, John?
Well, tama naman.
Yes and amen.
Yeah, I mean a small group definitely, but of course we also know that being Christians na and also being real, like people will and do fail, so we are fallible. So a
Yes.
small group definitely can help, but it's also bearing in mind from our end na as well the only one who is not gonna fail us and who always matches us with the emotional support and love and patience that we will always need is the Lord, diba? So, however, when you have that supporting you, when you know that you have your identity and your heart cradled by the Lord, yes, also a community that is also anchored in that self same love, diba, for one another and support for one another, definitely is very effective and very critical in helping us to break free or heal or grow out of yung mga emotional wounds or immaturities or traumas that we might have, psychological and so on. And definitely, it's also a support for us in when we have physical disabilities. So it can be a support, yes. So
I think it's just really important to understand from someone who is suffering from any kind of disability, whether it's mental or physical, is that it's okay to ask for help. It doesn't it does not
and
take
then it's okay
away
to accept help.
anything from you to ask and to accept help, because sometimes there's that thinking where if I ask for help, then I'm incomplete, then I'm not independent. No, no, that's not the idea. Yes.
Hmm.
Lang, kasi naisip ko si Josie, ganun siya, ayaw niyang mag-accept ng help.
Mm.
Binida ko talaga yung ano yung anime. Kaya panoorin niyo na.
Yeah, I checked out the synopsis. So gets ko yung flow. So tama naman.
Tsaka ano, I think that's the sometimes that's the mindset of ano of what do you call this? Uh of some people with disabilities, is that if they ask for help or accept help, they're less. So they, I know I can do this. I'll do it on my own. To the point it becomes a little bit arrogant sounding sometimes, and
Hmm.
that's not how to deal with it. When blessings come, you accept the blessing. But if you know, it's fine. It's fine to do that. You don't have to be angry about it. And it doesn't make you any less of a person for asking for help. And that's, I think, that's very very important to understand. I think I remember watching an old J drama before, where it's a love story between this lady who is um, also deaf mute and regularly abled person, and I got so frustrated when that's half halfway through the show. It was frustrating for me because a lot of times the lady would not accept help because she feels like she needs to do it on her own. And we're like, come on, lady. The person is trying to help you out of the goodness of his heart. He's not pitying you. He just wants to really be genuinely helpful. And I think that's really also the idea that, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to accept help. It's not a bad thing to what do you call this? Also to support each other genuinely. And
Yeah.
I think the idea of how do I put it? The idea um, of a sacrificial kind of love that can help others, it really stems from God. It really stems from Jesus. Remember that we as sinners, we have our own traumas because of our sins, because of our poor choices, and yet Jesus loves us regardless, and Jesus allows us to come to Him regardless, right? And when we accept Him, He takes even on the burden of our sins, and He even says, right, that come to me all who is weary and heavily laden, and I shall give you rest. And so I think it's the idea that one thing that I would say is that coming to Christ, coming to God, it allows you to process your traumas and disabilities in a way that is healthier, in a way that will allow for healing, and at the same time, a support group of like-minded individuals can definitely get you there. No, hindi siya pwedeng gawin on our own,
I agree.
diba? So with that being said, any final thoughts?
Hmm. I don't know. For me, my thoughts are like I kind of want to see more. I like dig into more positive representation, not of just trauma people. There's a lot of those, but of stories that deal with it in a more positive way. Deal with it in a more parang mature way. Like okay, these are how people are dealing with it and living with it. It is fairly uncommon. In at least in mainstream. So yung binigay ni example ni Maya, yung Josie, um, is I don't know. I mean, it's semi mainstream. Is it? I'm not sure. So I didn't really hear about it until you guys mentioned it. So yun lang. Pero yeah, looking into that is interesting.
Any final thoughts, Maya?
Just that you guys watch Josie, the tiger and the fish.
Yes, ma'am. I,
Pinanood namin ni ano eh, ni Vel tsaka ni Rav. Di ko napaiyak si Vel eh.
I need to balance my traumatic shows with something lighthearted. So I need to find something to a lighthearted show to watch with it after, so that I don't feel so because I also looked at Silent Voice. I haven't really seen it, but I know the premise of the story, and I'm like, my gosh, this is also
Ay,
deep.
hindi mo pa rin napapanood.
Yeah, Silent Voice hindi ko pa napapanood. It's
Yeah,
on my watch list eh. So,
Okay.
and a lot of animes have been coming out lately. Wow, they're so deep. I mean,
actually.
Yeah.
especially the series of movies from what's his face, the one from the one that produced or directed Your Name. It's like, my gosh, they're so deep.
Photo Shinkai. Ba?
Yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah. Anyway,
Mhm.
I guess the final thoughts here is that I think, yeah, I agree that there should probably be more representation of healing in terms of trauma and disabilities, because we all know that people who have experienced disability, who have disability or gone through disability, have also experienced some sort of trauma with it. Apart from those who also have mental disabilities, they probably also have some sort of trauma with it. I've seen that before, and you know, and I guess there needs to also be a proper way of being able to see how it's processed. But I think from my perspective, really, again, it goes back to needing a community of like-minded individuals that will have that kind of sacrificial love and allow you to process your traumas, so that you can be content with yourself regardless of your disability, because your disability does not make you any less of a person, right? um,
Mhm.
and the contentment that we look for, the only place that we can really find it is in Christ. So I think that's one of the things that uh, is important. Even in my case, where I went through a period of situational depression, um, being able to talk about what I'm going through in a support group of or a community of people who have experienced it or understand it, and will point me to Christ, has really helped me in the past. High glorious hope. So,
Mm. Ako siguro i-plug ko na lang yung dahil diyan
mm,
yung girls night ng LUGN which
ay,
will
yes.
happen this Saturday.
Yeah.
It'll be in SM Mega Mall at the Bake Cake.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll just find my way there. Ko alam kasi yan. Anyway, 2 p.m. And then we'll have dinner 4 p.m. onwards. So yeah, if you want to know more about LUGN, we have also a girls' night this Saturday. So come join us.
Yes, join. If you're a girl and you are looking for a community of like-minded individuals or people who will generally listen to you and support you, then go to the girls' night out. We also have a
Yay!
we also have a Facebook group and a Discord page, the Discord server. So join us. Someone will hopefully type in the link into our comment section for the
It'll be
Discord server, and message us if you want to just connect with us. So that's it from us from tonight, and watch out for our next message, maybe on next talk in the next few days, next few weeks rather. So thank you guys for joining us, and see you soon. Bye bye.
Good
ah.
night! Oyasumi nasai!
Thanks for joining.